Welcome back. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer setting up a vote later today to move forward with a laddered continuing resolution to avert a partial shutdown this upcoming Friday. This bill would keep the government funded through March 1st and March 8th. Utah Senator Mike Lee joined me on Sunday threatening a shutdown over border security. He joined me on Sunday Morning Futures with reaction.
Well, it's time to get serious about the border right now. And the way we do that is to tell the Biden administration, if you want your administration funded, secure the border or shut it down. The very worst thing we can do right now is give them more money for their priorities, for things like giving aid to help other countries secure their borders, while doing nothing that's actually going to change President Biden's will to enforce the law.
Joining me right now is Pennsylvania Congressman Scott Perry, a member of the House Oversight and Foreign Affairs Committees, as well as the House Freedom Caucus chairman. Congressman, it's good to see you today. Thanks very much for being here. I thought you didn't want any more continuing resolutions.
Well, good morning, Maria. Love the hat. We didn't want any more continuing resolutions, but I will tell you, I don't think there really should be any plausible fear of any government shutdown. The Democrats are getting absolutely everything they want. They're getting a continuation of the Pelosi policies, plus a couple $100 billion more than she enacted when she was the speaker to enforce those policies and enact those policies. When all the Democrats are going to vote for something and you have a bunch of Republicans who never want to confront anything, there's little that the rest of us, including the speaker, can do about that. So that's the most likely outcome in the next few days here out of Washington, D.C.
Well, I mean, look, House Speaker Mike Johnson reportedly told lawmakers that he opposes this Senate border deal. Oklahoma Senator James Lankford has been negotiating this, and he's encouraging everybody to read the bill before they judge it, saying people should not believe everything they read on the Internet, Congressman. Lankford is referring to the Immigration Accountability Project, which leaked a draft version of this bill. It shows it would increase green card handouts to $50,000 a year, give work permits to every illegal immigrant released from custody. And, I mean, this one really gets me. You'll only have expulsion authority after we have 5,000 encounters over 7 days. So, Congressman, are you and your colleagues putting the border security that you've talked so much about off the table now?
No, I don't think it's off the table, but I don't know that it's going to be part of this funding package. I wish it were, but I don't see that happening. I think it'll be actually part of the supplemental that will come after this next funding deal. I don't see any reason whatsoever. I appreciate and respect Senator Lankford, but if anything that is offered in that pre-released version or that leaked version is true, that has to be dead on arrival in the House of Representatives. The American people want us to secure the border, not secure in perpetuity the legality of people to come across the border illegally in huge numbers. That's not what they asked for. They want us to stop this crazy influx of people coming across the border illegally, and that policy does not do that. It actually enshrines it in law.
Well, then if we're talking about this being the bill at hand, it sounds like we're headed for a partial government shutdown on Saturday.
Well, I don't think they're going to put this immigration bill on the Senate's going to put this immigration proposal on the continuing resolution. I have not heard that. And I think the House will send its own version of a continuing resolution to the Senate. It looks like Washington's going to be shut down today for weather, but I suspect the Speaker will want to put that on the floor as soon as possible and take the lead between the House and the Senate on how the government is funded.
Let me switch gears and ask you about these investigations underway. House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan and House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer said that they'll send another subpoena to Hunter Biden. Hunter's lawyer, of course, says that Hunter is willing to show up for a closed-door deposition, saying that the initial subpoena was invalid because it came before the House formalized the impeachment inquiry. Congressman, where are we on this?
Well, I think this will be the third subpoena, and I guess Hunter's planning on 3 strikes or you're out, so he said now he'll come. I'm sure that they didn't want the optics of having him continue to deny and not comply with subpoenas and then have the Department of Justice have to go arrest Hunter Biden. They didn't want that optic. So I think he's going to come in, but I don't think that we should take the contempt resolution vote off the table until he is actually sitting there, because he's been just known to, unfortunately, like the rest of the Biden clan, prolifically lie. And so we can't take him at his word. We need to have cash on the barrelhead. We need him sitting in for the deposition, and then the contempt resolution can be delayed.
So what can you get out of that closed-door meeting? I want to get your take on evidence so that the audience understands this investigation. What would you say, because you and your colleagues have said money laundering, bribery, influence peddling, what would you say is the most damning evidence to prove these things?
Well, the most damning evidence, of course, is the bank statements and the financial transactions. Their claims can be one thing, but banks, generally speaking, don't lie. They're trying to comply with the law. They don't want the investigators in there accusing them of wrongdoing. So they're keeping track of all these financial transactions, including the over 170 suspicious activity reports. We want to talk to Hunter about those things and corroborate those stories and link them to the transactions to see what's true or not. And the only way to do that, look, it's like I tell many people, the House Oversight and Judiciary Committee is not really interested in Hunter Biden's malfeasance or his lawlessness. That's up to the Department of Justice. What we're interested in is what he has to say and to corroborate the information that would implicate his father in potentially bribery or money laundering and or influence peddling. That's what we're interested in. And he's one of the only people that can actually provide that information.
Okay. Congressman, we'll be watching your work. Thanks very much.
Thank you. God bless you, Maria.